Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the InChain podcast. Today I have Imran with me. Imran is a partner at World Capital and he is involved with DeFi Alliance and Token Daily as well. Today we are going to talk to him more about backing interesting projects in DeFi, which he's doing with DeFi Alliance, and he backs global projects through World Capital. So we are going to talk to him more about his thesis and some exciting things that he's saying in crypto these days. So Imran, can you start off by talking about how you started World Capital and got into crypto as well?
Yeah, got into crypto around the 2013 timeframe. There was a bunch of TechCrunch articles as usual. Around that time, I'd sold my company, and I was looking to look at the next emerging technology. And crypto really caught my eyes. Ended up investing at the top, which was $800, and then it dropped down to like 200. And I was pretty like it was one of those things that was pretty emotional, but I think what drew me to it, that was one of the reasons what drew me into crypto for the longer term, because I wanted to learn what I invested in, how much money I lost into this. Generally, I found it to be very fascinating. I ended up doing a consulting job at Coinbase around that time with Adam White. And since then, I decided that I think I'd like to dive deeper into crypto. I ended up working for Microsoft. I spent about 6 years there. Because I didn't want to move to San Francisco. I stayed in Chicago. I spent 6 years there, first half of my career on the product development side. So the first integration that you saw with BitPay and Xbox Live was one of the things I worked on. The last half of my career I spent at Microsoft Ventures, where I helped build out the crypto thesis. Then moving forward from then on, around 2017, I joined Token Daily. They were one of the first crypto launch pads, I'd say around that time, and they helped launch many of the startups that you see today. They have a rich developer community, and I came on to kind of help kickstart the fund. The Volt Capital Fund, if you kind of think about the thesis perspective, the three areas that we focus on is institutional infrastructure projects. Number two is DeFi, and number three is end user services. So anything that touches the end user. And so some of those projects include like Dharma, Fortmatic, which is now Magic Labs, and et cetera. So those are some of the projects that we invested in, and that's our thesis for our fund.
So I saw that you were looking at investing in Africa, right? And even one of your portfolio companies, I think, is from Africa. So can you talk about like what you are saying? I see that there's a lot of adoption in Africa, in Nigeria, and these countries. So
Yeah.
What interesting trends have you seen there?
Yeah, I think Africa generally there's massive opportunity. Like with every paradigm shift that happens from a technical perspective, there are countries that are most suited to adopt technology quicker than others. It's just the way it is. And the ones that have legacy infrastructure, it's harder for them to adopt newer technology due to regulations, et cetera. So from that perspective, Africa is primed to take advantage of all of what's happening in crypto. One of our investors of Volt Capital, Yele, leads an accelerator program called Microtraction, which is similar to Y Combinator, and it's really geared towards like enabling really talented folks to understand what are some of the core infrastructure issues within the countries that they live in, and being able to use newer technologies to solve them. And so that's what's happening. And so in Africa, as an example, one of the companies we backed, Buycoins, is essentially offering an exchange that's similar to Coinbase, but it also enables a few other kind of interesting trends that others aren't really seeing today. Many of the people in Africa, they're leveraging Buycoins as a means to make like a day-to-day income, which is pretty incredible. Obviously, you can see some of those trends happening in the States, but it's not as robust as it is in Africa. Payments is obviously very big there. I mean, if you look at like M-Pesa being started around the 2010 timeframe, and so you're seeing a lot of the payment infrastructure being redeveloped into leveraging some of the crypto native infrastructure, which is pretty interesting there. But we're starting to see a lot of newer types of developments that aren't particularly used in the States or elsewhere that we're super excited about. But I guess if I had to kind of give you 2 bullet points, the first bullet point is uh, it enables, crypto is where I'm kind of focused on. It enables like new countries or like countries that are emerging to adopt technology quicker. And two, because of that, you're able to see much more advanced technical iterations of products that we would like to see here in the States, which is really, really compelling and exciting.
Yeah, I guess it's that when you in the United States or in other places where the financial ecosystem is well developed, you see, say, a 1.5 or 2x improvement. But if in Africa it's a 5x improvement to what currently exists, then it just makes sense to adopt the tech which is better. Um,
Which
Also,
is
yeah,
like, here's a beautiful example. United States, obviously, credit cards was one of the tech revolution. I guess you want to call it tech revolution now, but back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, it was a huge revolution, right? So our entire infrastructure was laid on top of that. Unfortunately, when like more of the mobile apps started to come out, we were more of the boomers, where we didn't adopt some of that technology. Whereas China, they didn't have the legacy credit card infrastructure in place. So for them, they were able to adopt WeChat and Alipay as a means for merchants to take payments. And now there's trillions of dollars that flow into those two platforms, whereas all of our legacy infrastructure is still enabling that. So you could see this already happening with like the past paradigm shift,
yeah.
and we're going to see that again with Africa.
Yeah, I think China and even India, like I
India too.
personally, yeah, it's really crazy. Like the past 2 3 years, or I would say the past after the demonetization thing happened in India, which
Yeah.
was I think in 2017, if I remember correctly. But that sort of I have seen it change so fast. Like even now, small rickshaw puller or a
Yeah.
small shop vendor, they accept these payment apps. Yeah. So in Africa, have you seen, I'm just curious, any like DeFi activity, or is it like people who are just using Bitcoin to as a store of value or as payment as a payment method?
We're seeing some, but primarily it's been focused on payments. Is where I'm seeing a lot of the activity, and it actually brings up an interesting thought, which is um, right now, M-Pesa and like there's a couple other payment gateways that are kind of controlling a lot of the inflows and outflows of payments. And so maybe many of the entrepreneurs are still seeing issues with their current payment infrastructure that's been laid out, and that's probably why they're focusing on that a lot more. But yeah, no, this was just a thought. So a lot of mind share is still kind of focused on rebuilding that type of infrastructure versus DeFi. Whereas I think DeFi, um, it's more speculative and attracts a certain type of a group of folks that's more global in nature, which isn't, I wouldn't call DeFi is solving any critical issues today. But aside from speculation for now, whereas I think countries like Africa, they have like there's certain like infrastructure issues that they have that they need to focus their time on. So that's where I'm seeing a lot of the mind share they're happening focused on right now.
Yeah, also I think some of these countries don't have very good national currencies, so I guess Bitcoin and stuff might be good there. But hopefully, if as DeFi gets more integrated with the financial institutions, maybe people can maybe start using USDC and stuff as better store of value compared to their own national currency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what do you think about it? That do you think something like this can happen, that people start using USDC instead of their own currency? Or yeah,
Oh yeah, that's I would say it really depends on how the countries will uh, react to stablecoins generally. I would say that could become an enabler. So as an example of this is like if a country really sees a threat to stablecoins, maybe such as a country like China, You'll have strict regulations that will forbid anyone from interacting with some of these stable coins, and just have you focused on whatever areas or whatever the country wants you to focus on. So that's like kind of like how I see one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is be open, right? Like don't have little to no regulations. But the problem with that is obviously like the strongest currency right now, if you want to call it the strongest, I guess the most mind share of a currency right now is the dollar. And so people naturally gravitate to that because that is something that gives everyone peace of mind, right? So I would say there's kind of like, I would say 3 schools of thoughts, right? One is be open, and then risk risk that the citizens that are leveraging these stable coins to adopt the US dollar versus yours, which could become a threat over time. 2 is offer some regulations, which is like force exchanges to use local stable coins as an on-ramp, and then you could use other coins after that, other stable coins after that. And then finally 3 is just being very controlling like China, and then just kind of offer products and services that is aligned with the kind of the country's long-term plan.
Okay, let's talk about DeFi Alliance now. Can you first of all, talk about why did you start DeFi Alliance, and then we can go deeper into it.
Yeah, I would say between 2017 to 2019, we've being in Chicago. Chicago is home to about 60% of the market makers globally, so a lot of the liquidity is concentrated in that city. And it was pretty interesting over time. I've had many DeFi protocols and founders reach out, wanting to connect with market makers, trading firms, and liquidity providers, so that they could attract liquidity onto their platforms, get product feedback, or even just like look and feel or understand what the talent kind of ratio looks like here in the state in Chicago. So over time, I built a community of trading firms and market makers like Jump Trading and DRW and CMT Digital. And as DeFi was starting to take off around the March timeframe, we got together and said, like, I think we need to offer more of a strict support structure that would give startups in the DeFi space a better understanding of how they can connect with market makers, and create a programmatic way to offer structured feedback, along with being able to fast track liquidity provisioning from traditional market makers. And so we started this program we launched it in about April. We had about 400 applications come in globally. And so once we saw that, we realized that this is a core specific need that needs to be solved or needs to be addressed so that we can kind of move the industry forward. So we ended up creating an accelerator program that's 8 weeks long, and it helps fast track startups into the traditional finance world. And then it also enables traditional financial firms to learn more about DeFi as well. So we've had many market makers come in that had no exposure to DeFi at all, to being like more robust now. So as an example, there's one market maker that I can speak about that not only like provided liquidity, but are also actively investing in DeFi startups now. And that's incredible. And so we want to continue to create that like flywheel where we're able to onboard as many traditional market makers, institutional firms into DeFi, and then bringing that institutional liquidity to DeFi protocols and growing the overall pie together.
Okay. So you have done one batch till now since you launched?
We've done 2 batches.
2 batches, okay.
And then the third batch is the third cohort will launch early January. So applications will be going live next month. But we've had over 20 startups that went through our program. And I guess from a like if you were to think about like what are like our areas, that the 3 areas that we're looking to solve, like if you want to call it our core thesis. The first is liquidity provisioning challenges. So bringing more institutional market makers to DeFi. That's one. Two is regulations. So we have a regulatory task force that we're launching very soon that will kind of lobby and support DeFi generally. And then finally is hiring and recruiting, and bringing more Web 2 talent to Web 3.
Gotcha. So how has the experience been, running a DeFi accelerator? There are not many crypto accelerators as such. There is a couple of, in China or Singapore, and but in general, if you compare it to the normal startup world, the number of accelerators in crypto are very less. So how has your experience been, and what do you think are the challenges of running if you compare of running a crypto accelerator compared to, say, running a normal accelerator?
Well, that's a good question, and it's probably the reason why we started that in the first place. Is that if you were to look at like enterprise or startups generally building for the enterprise or direct to consumer markets, there's some frameworks that you could work out of, right? Which is one, the regulations already solved for you, right? Two is users generally know how to use mobile phones or computers or desktops. Three, there's a robust infrastructure of APIs and other types of services that kind of support the running of the mobile application. We don't have that in DeFi, or if we do, it's very bare minimal. And so I would say we are an accelerator program per se, but we're more of a core, I wouldn't call it core infrastructure provider, but like we're looking to solve core hurdles that DeFi startups go through, and we do that through partnerships. We do that through working groups that we have within the alliance, and finally, it's just working as a community. Whereas in those types of worlds, like the enterprise and the direct to consumer, there's more competition because the framework is already laid out. In DeFi right now, it isn't. So we all have to come together as a group and kind of tackle each of these issues together as a community, so that the pie gets big enough where we can compete. And so that's where we are right now. And so I would call ourselves a working group alliance first, and then number two is accelerator. Whereas I think most would be just an accelerator program. We have this kind of two-pronged approach because the mind share is needed to be concentrated so we can tackle these issues together as a team.
So can you talk more about the program itself? Like you have, you mentioned 8 weeks. What are the, how much money do you give and how much equity do you take?
Yeah. It's an 8-week program. We have 4 modules we focus on: liquidity provisioning, regulations, product, and trading. So those are like the 4 core aspects we look at. We invest about $150,000 per startup. In terms of tokens, there's an X percentage supply of tokens that we normally take. And the goal here is to align incentives. And what I mean by that is most of the alliance members that are part of the program are also going to be providing liquidity. And to provide liquidity, I think there's a few things that happens here. One is like being able to align incentives in such a way that both the startup and the market maker are in it for the long term. The market maker will invest in this project or in the startup so that they can be successful, and vice versa, where market makers will provide capital because there's a incentive for them to do that in the long term. So there's this kind of like dual incentive program that we have. So by enabling startups to get more active with startups, market makers to get more active with startups, it gives them this kind of dual synergetic approach where they can be invested in each other's success. And so we see a lot of this is happening now. And not only that, though, what's awesome is that even after the program is done, you see the market makers that are still being very active with the startups, because that's kind of how we see this kind of long-term approach, because market making, there's pros and cons, right? Pros are, you can provide liquidity for a protocol, but if it's not long-term or sustainable, then what's the point? So there has to be a long-term way to kind of engineer that together so that people are much more connected in the long term. So that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
So when you say providing liquidity, you mean like say if a startup has a token, providing liquidity for that, or if or if it has say a platform which requires some say liquidity, say it's a if it's a DEX aggregator, then it needs to have maybe some liquidity. Do you mean that both of these things or something else as well?
Both.
Yeah.
Anything, yeah. So I would just put it under a liquidity bucket. It could be governance tokens for liquidity mining programs. It could be for trading or for exchanges that need more markets and different trading pairs. It could be anything, but it all depends on the startup's use case.
Gotcha. So you also mentioned about regulations that you look at. What interesting things have you seen for DeFi startups tackling regulation that you didn't expect? When you were starting out with DeFi Alliance, and usually what's the hurdle that startups face with regulation?
Well, it's the unknown. It's the unknown of whether or not what are the parameters within the governments that you're able to work out of, and loosely you'll hear like based on what you see and hear, this is what you could kind of work out of. But the problem is even with all of this is that you're sidestepped by what the SEC and the CFTC, et cetera, will launch publicly. So like with the takedown of BitMEX as an example, many of the startups reached out to me that were scared, like they were literally scared. And so we ended up doing a community panel right after that with Jake Travinsky of Compound, Colleen, Mark, Rebecca, and Jason from 0x to kind of like calm the community, calm the entrepreneurs down a bit, and really talk about like what tools do you have as an entrepreneur that you could leverage so that you could be successful in the terms in the sense of being able to work within the framework that you are allowed to. And then two, what are things that you should avoid, even if it's gray? And so we want to make sure that we continue to leverage the task force that we have within the DeFi Alliance to address these like public kind of like takedowns in such a way that it calms entrepreneurs down, because they're not just like they're not like just risking their lives by building these products. Like if you look at traditional enterprise founders, they're not risking their lives aside from the capital and their time. Founders in DeFi are risking their capital, their livelihood, and really like putting themselves at risks for legal concerns. So and that's one of the reasons why the Alliance kind of came together and launched a regulatory task force, is so that we could protect these startups as they build in DeFi. And that's what we're doing. So you'll hear probably more about the regulatory task force in the coming weeks.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think for regulation, I agree. I agree with what you say, and I think founders that are building, it's just they are all quite passionate, and usually, yeah, they understand the risks and they understand the rewards as well, because the space has a lot of potential to grow. In terms of DeFi trends, what are the things that you're seeing right now? I saw that you had a sort of like a demo day last week or some few days ago. What interesting trends are you seeing in DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, mostly it's like perpetuals, derivatives are products that people are actively building. It's probably like the best time to do it as well because of what happened with BitMEX. And you'll probably see interesting things come up with other exchanges, kind of like that are operating in the legally gray area. And so I think derivatives, on-chain derivatives will probably start to take off eventually once there's a lot of kind of like product development and advancements on speed and scalability. We'll start to see that kind of come about. We're seeing, a lot of mind share in the options space. So you have great companies like Primidify, Pods, Open, Potion Labs, they're all kind of building in this area that we're excited about. And there's different flavors of AMMs that are coming out that are geared towards different like areas that they need to focus on in terms of solving a core issue. So like as an example, Uniswap with just the general AMMs, then you have like Curve with more stablecoin like AMMs. Then you have Dodo that will offer like, ways to kind of like lower the impermanent loss risks. So there's different flavors that are coming out, but I think long term, we'll see some that are aggregated towards like kind of the core issues, and then you'll start to see these interesting flexible AMMs that are going to solve specific issues for a larger problem.
Yeah. So you right now, like DeFi is mostly, I would say, getting used by whales, like at a very large volume, and some crypto, like mostly crypto native people who have been in the space from 2017, and even those, I think not all of them are using. Like I know personally a lot of friends who, they just haven't used DeFi. So do you, in terms of adoption, like do you see, like say as we get layer 2 and as say transaction costs decrease, the people might start even using DeFi applications, normal people, instead of centralized applications?
Yeah, I think we're going into a world that's more that your assets are going to become more productive with in terms of what you want to do with it. So like assets sitting in central exchanges do no work for you. And what I mean by work is yield. And so I think we're already going through this process with more of the crypto native folks that, an asset needs to be productive or there's opportunity costs. And the way you could get, take advantage of productive assets is being on DeFi. That's plain and simple.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing a shift for crypto native users to go to DeFi from that perspective. However, the masses are still learning about Bitcoin. So from a long-term perspective, we're still so early.
It's a gateway drug, right? Like hopefully.
They need to get into Bitcoin first.
Yeah.
Once they get into Bitcoin, then they can see the rest of the world.
Yeah. So you mentioned that since you're based in Chicago and there are a lot of liquidity providers and firms there. So what are the things that usually they ask when they look at DeFi, and what has been the most challenging thing to explain or try to for you to explain to them, how's the response been from them regarding DeFi? Do they see this as a very innovative thing?
Yeah, well, usually the first time they hear about it, they say they push back and say, this is probably not something they want to do today. They'll think about it and they'll leave. So they'll inquire about it, but not enough for them to join the alliance. And I get it from their perspective because, Bitcoin is still a challenge for many people in many parts of the world. So why take on something even more riskier? But like, if you look at DeFi, where it started and where it's going, it's rapidly moving quickly in terms of mindshare. So they all come back and they say like, well, tell me more about like what's happening in DeFi. I'm hearing from other folks, and so we educate them and we teach them like areas of opportunities where they need to focus their time on, who they should be talking to. We provide an entire educational funnel so that once they're like up to speed in regards to what DeFi is and they're sold on like kind of like the market opportunity, then we get them connected to market startups where they can actually start to like think about how incentives look like, and then get them on board to DeFi.
So in terms of like, have you seen any of them do say market making on Uniswap or SushiSwap or any of these dexes?
Well, yes and no. Like they'll provide some just to learn, but not at the scale and breadth that we want. So most of the total value locked in these protocols are crypto focused funds and whales. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to come in. I think it's just if they're going to come in, they're going to come in with billions of dollars, not millions. So they have the order books to provide it. I think it's just uh, infrastructure needs to be more ready, which many of them are building, and I think over time they will. It's just testing.
So I think I have seen some firms that have emerged that sort of do market making on these things, and I think this might improve as well. I think there's Autonomy I saw in Singapore, and
Autonomy, yeah, they're
yeah,
they're yeah they're part of the alliance. They're a great firm.
oh nice. Yeah, so do they do market making on Dexes? Like, is that one part of the business?
I can't provide too much context in terms of what
Okay.
they do, but I could just generally say they're a great market maker for crypto.
Okay, gotcha. Coming to NFTs, have you thought about the NFT space, and are you looking at in the whole Ethereum space?
Yes,
What else are you
um,
looking at?
I I generally I would say I'm more of like I think there's about a few areas of NFTs that I'm really excited about. One is obviously the convergence between NFTs and DeFi as one. Two is uh, gaming, and three is more of kind of like scarce assets that could be designed in a way that could be available to the masses. So those are like the three areas that I've seen where I think NFTs are quite important. Um, but I think there'll be many, many more. But those are the three areas I would say. The ones that I'm excited about, obviously, any type of infrastructure support around NFTs are what I'm excited about currently. Obviously, we're laying down the foundation for this space, and so we are kind of early from that perspective. And then you have like interesting, so that's kind of the infrastructure side. The gaming, obviously, if you look at kind of Axie Infinity and what they're doing in terms of creating an ecosystem of the community that is not only enjoying the games that Axie provides, but then it also has them vested into the protocol for the long term, which I think is super interesting. And then from just the collectible side, I think you just have so many different types of NFTs that are selling for X amount that you probably hear about randomly. But all of these are sparks of what could be what would success look like if there was billions of dollars into the space. But generally speaking, those are three areas that I'm super excited about. And there's, companies are building all three. And I think over time, we'll start to see more robust protocols and platforms that will offer much more seamless ways for everyone to kind of interact.
So when you say collectibles, do you mean like gaming collectibles, or you mean like even like say digital fine art or audio NFTs and things like that?
All of the above.
Yeah.
So anything that's a collectible from whether it's sentimental value because of a brand, whether it's a scarce like something that's very scarce, or it could be art or music that you love. All of that would fall into that kind of category.
So, okay, gotcha. And in terms of NFT and DeFi, like there are what I've seen mostly is DeFi and NFT. Like mostly people have, like say for meme, you stake your meme tokens and then you get a
Mhm.
NFT, and that's what's usually happening. But now I'm seeing some financial products developed for NFTs as well. Like say you can loan out your NFT, you can create baskets or factionize your NFTs to ERC20s, which can then leverage DeFi. um have you seen any interesting projects there, or it's just it's still early?
I think we're experimenting. I like what's really cool about meme is they kind of leverage, you could say, this yield farming concept into creating a community where people have to hold meme tokens as a way to get access to newer collectibles. So it's kind of like this bootstrapping mechanism, and the rewards that it's like the inflation rewards that any yield farming opportunity brings is the way is the way that meme converts its kind of users into long-term vested kind of crypto collectibles. So I think we're still very early from that side, like experimenting and understanding ways how certain things that have worked, I guess if you want to call it, worked well in DeFi, borrowing some of those concepts in NFTs and seeing how you could bootstrap collectibles market. I guess some issues with the collectibles market is that it's very fragmented, right? So what I would like to see in this space is a way to better discover NFTs. So this is like where we are, kind of like in a search engine problem that we have. If you look at what happened in the early 2000s, you had many search engines come out, and obviously the biggest issue then was being able to be able to figure out what website you need the most, and how do you kind of rate those websites based on what you're looking for and what the community is looking for. I think that's where we are on discovering site for NFTs. I know that there will be a way to solve that, but right now there's just so much out there, and we're not even in the seventh inning. We're in the first, so I do think we still have a long time to go before we solve this. But I think that's one area that I would love for someone to look into and start to build around.
Mm-hmm. Also, for Volt Capital, what are some interesting areas apart from DeFi or NFT that you are looking at, in Ethereum or even Bitcoin for investing in that has sort of emerged recently, or yeah?
Yeah, I mentioned a few. The couple that I'm really excited about is Magic Labs, which was Fortmatic. They first built out an infrastructure that allows private key management to be stored and protected safely. They do this leveraging some of the core infrastructure that's provided by AWS, along with creating some additional infrastructure on top to make it non-custodial in a very protected manner. And now the goal is in crypto, when you're building, when I talk to a founder in crypto, they build a product. I'm not saying everyone, I'm just saying generally, even myself, I tend to look at the market that I'm building for, which is the market that I live in, which is crypto. From the outsider's perspective, the market for crypto is still very small. The users are still very, very tiny compared to the users of Web2 platforms. And so what Magic has done is that they've built this infrastructure out for crypto, leveraging crypto properties. But it turns out being able to provide a single sign-on solution that encrypts not only your information, but all of what you're doing on a website is actually quite important. And so many of the traditional Web2 players are leveraging Fortmatic now to create this experience that allows any user to log in seamlessly, encrypted, and not having to worry about whether or not their data is being mined for etc. reasons. So it gives people and developers a peace of mind. And so Fortmatic or Magic Labs is a product I'm really excited about. They have probably hundreds of Web2 applications, websites that are either inline or leveraging Fortmatic now to create this experience, which we're really excited about. So it isn't about bringing Web2 to Web3. That's kind of what our mindset or thesis is. It should be about bringing Web3 to Web2. And I think Fortmatic has done a great job of that.
Yeah, I think Polymarket, I seen they during the selections I used that, and I used Magic, and I have actually been following Fortmatic since almost they launched. It's been great to see their progress. So just I was also curious about this, in terms of businesses that are solving real problems and trying to build revenue in crypto, apart from exchanges and people who provide liquidity and all that thing. How have you seen that people are now able to build out profitable businesses, or like Magic is for one example? Obviously they are still early, but in terms of profitable businesses in crypto, have you seen this trend change where people are solving some problems and are able to make in some money?
There are companies that are profitable. Yeah. I can't name names, obviously, but
Yeah.
there's many that are close to being profitable or are profitable. So there's definitely a business here to be made.
Mhm.
It's just really depends on your time horizon. Um, Crypto is obviously still very new, and there's a lot of battles that we're all solving together.
Mhm.
Um, so it's just about like how long are you able to go before you're able to attract those users to your platform, and what types of core problems you're looking to solve. Whether it's like short-term problems or is it more long-term, where you need more time and support and development in the ecosystem to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, makes sense. Also, just to wrap this up, what sort of geographical trends have you seen in terms of founders who have been applying for DeFi Alliance or even for World
Yeah,
Capital? Yeah, have you seen like a good founders coming from all over the world? And yeah, what sort of trends have you seen
yeah,
there?
all over the world. Like San Francisco isn't the only place that people are applying from anymore. We're seeing people from Europe, China, India, Malaysia, Taiwan, you name it. So we um, we appreciate the diversity that comes in, and we want every core to be as diverse as possible, because it isn't just about what you learn through the program, but it's also about the people that you connect with and learn from. Crypto is going to be a global product set. It isn't a singular product, um, and so, well, it depends, but most of the time, and 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 from that lens, you want to build a product that is an audience for the globe versus just an audience for a certain geographic area.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think thanks Imran for coming on the
Yep.
show today. It was really awesome learning about DeFi Alliance and World Capital and your thoughts on the space in general. Yeah, thanks for taking the
Yeah.
time out,
Thank you for having me.
and I hope you make good investments in the future as well. And yeah, let's chat again in some time.
Sounds good. Thank you.